Since Jordan killed a moose in Season 6, contestants have realized the importance of hunting. As a result, there has been a significant leap in the mastery of hunting and trapping skills, as well as in the understanding of the resources at the competition site. Typically, those who capture large game are the ones who win the title. For fishing even in large quantities, there seems to be a curse of insufficient lasting power. For example, in Season 7, the Fish King, Mark and Amos, both faced challenges. Mark withdrew from the competition due to a parasitic infection from eating fish. Despite their strong early performances, neither won the championship. It seemed only large animals could secure a contestant's victory, but this rule was broken by one person. On day 66 of the competition, aside from shooting a grouse, Alan relied solely on fishing for his food. He is the champion of Season 10 of Alone in the Wilderness, a contestant skilled both technically and mentally. This episode takes us through his championship journey. Alan is a high school teacher who teaches outdoor survival skills, English and sociology. Influenced by his father, he has always enjoyed hunting and fishing. Decades of experience have given him a significant advantage, especially since he once lived in an area similar to the competition site. He entered the competition hoping to use the prize money to improve his family's living conditions. On the first day of the competition, before even exploring his surroundings, Alan started making fishing lures, demonstrating his practical approach. He didn't spend much time or effort on his shelter like some contestants. He was experienced and confident in fishing, even having insights into choosing the right materials. Black spruce with a 40 to 60% moisture content sinks in water. He carved a basic shape, then wrapped it with steel wire and parachute cord. The finished product looked good, but catching fish would depend on luck. Alan was familiar with the fish in the lake, knowing it was their spawning season, and they were closer to shore, making them easier to catch. After standing by the shore for half an hour, he felt a tug on the line and immediately began reeling in, worried the fish might escape if he was too slow. He caught a good-sized trout, about 2 pounds, making it the first fish caught by the contestants this season. Alan was extremely grateful, thanking the fish excitedly. As expected, there were many fish eggs inside, which looked appetizingly yellow. That evening, Alan set up camp by the lake, started a campfire, and waited for the fish to cook while enjoying the lake and mountain scenery. Knowing the importance of fat in maintaining weight and securing victory from previous seasons, he ate the fish eggs and skin, even though he usually disliked them, forcing himself to get used to them. Alan kept his shelter simple. First, he tied the tops of 3 tree trunks to form a tripod, then spread them out on the ground. He added more logs around to enhance the structure's load-bearing capacity and stability. He then tied horizontal sticks across the middle and covered the surface with fresh spruce branches, followed by a thick layer of moss, leaving only the top open for a smoke outlet. The dense root system of moss offers excellent waterproofing and insulation, so Alan didn't even need to use a tarp. This efficient construction saved him a significant amount of calories compared to other contestants who took weeks to complete their shelters. Yesterday, he set several traps in the forest, knowing that berries alone wouldn't win him the championship. The traps surprisingly caught a marten instead of the intended rabbits. Local laws only permit hunting them with bows and arrows, so Alan had to release it, risking a bite. He covered the marten's head with his jacket and cut the wire tied to the tree. Considering the risk of accidentally killing protected animals with his traps, Alan decided to dismantle them and wait for snow to track snow hares, avoiding the risk of ending up in jail for violating wildlife protection laws while competing in Alone in the Wilderness. Next, Alan would focus on fishing as his main food source. However, after trying several spots without success, the competition quietly reached its 16th day. Alan then found a new promising spot, hoping it wouldn't disappoint him this time. He believes his greatest strength is persistence. He always manages to overcome obstacles and keep trying despite failures. Finally, Alan caught a fish from the lake, his first catch after many days. This 5-pound trout could provide enough protein to last him 3 days. He planned to eat the fish meat over 2 days and the head and bones on the 3rd day. Having not had a proper meal in 5 days, the appearance of this fish was a relief. The next day, Alan started making a gill net at camp to maximize the lake's fish resources. He worked overtime to finish the net by that afternoon. With winter approaching, fishing would become particularly difficult, so he had high hopes for the gill net, which could work around the clock. He tied it to a long tree trunk and set it up to wait for a catch. Then, Alan set out to construct the door for his shelter. He measured the doorway and created a trapezoidal structure that was narrower at the top and wider at the bottom. He gathered a large amount of moss from nearby and used it as a windbreak layer in the middle of the door, securing it with branches to prevent the moss from falling off. After testing, he found the door fit perfectly. The next day, full of hope, Alan went to check the gillnet by the lake, but was disappointed to see it was empty, visible even from the shore. He noticed the weather cooling rapidly, food beginning to spoil, and no animal tracks in the forest. Fishing seemed to be the only way for Alan to obtain food here. The trout he had caught could only feed him until today, so he had to make the most of his time. He then saw a large fish attracted by his lure. Although it didn't bite, it was a great encouragement for Alan. What happened next was unexpected. After persistent waiting, he finally caught a fish from the lake. It wasn't big, but it thrilled Alan immensely. It was still early, so he decided to try his luck again and soon caught the first trout of the day. Thinking 2 fish might be his limit for the day, he reset the bait and waited. To his surprise, another fish bit soon after, and reeling it in went smoothly. Seeing his good luck, he decided to fish until dark. By 5:30 p.m., as Alan was getting slightly bored, the fishing line moved again. He quickly reeled in another trout. The 4 fish provided about 5,000 calories, an unbelievable bounty. Alan's catch today could be described as a result of hard work and luck. For the next week or so, he kept catching fish from the lake, significantly easing his food shortage. However, he didn't indulge but saved as much as possible, preparing for winter. Fish innards, usually not his choice, now became part of his meals. The caught fish needed to be smoked and dehydrated for longer preservation. He built a smokehouse similar in style to his shelter, with a conical wooden structure covered in moss. Inside, he made a smoking rack from wire and branches, placing the prepared fish on it. He chose wood from maple, birch, and willow trees for the fire, as their smoke contains fewer harmful substances, making the smoked fish tastier and healthier. Then, a storm hit the area, trapping Alan in his dwelling and preventing him from foraging. However, the smoking process was uninterrupted. He kept adding wood, preferring to oversmoke rather than risking spoilage. The lure he made at the start of the competition had severely deteriorated, so now with some time, he made a new one, this time with 2 larger hooks, thinking that a bigger lure might catch bigger fish. After the storm calmed down, Alan immediately went to the lakeside to test his new lure. Surprisingly, when he tried fishing, the experience startled him. Despite pulling the line taut, the fish managed to escape just short of the shore. The second fish escaped even faster, which somewhat frustrated Alan. By day 31, Alan noticed his face had become gaunter, where it once had been plump. He needed to eat more fish to slow his weight loss. However, his gill net wasn't very effective. It hadn't caught anything for half a month. Finally, it caught a merganser, but local laws only allowed hunting mergansers with a bow and arrow, not trapping. Despite the merganser being a potential feast, Alan had to release it due to the regulations. During the process, the net was severely damaged, but he prioritized fishing over repairing it. Today, the lake was choppy, and Alan stayed until evening without a bite. The next morning, he didn't fish, but repaired the gill net instead. After some effort, he managed to mend the large tear. The fishing spot was still rough, so he remembered another bay he had found, thinking its calmer waters would be more suitable for fishing. Packing his backpack and bow, he headed out, ready to hunt grouse, hares, or moose along the way. The trek through the dense forest was exhausting, but the secluded lake proved ideal for fishing, calm and suitable. Setting up his camera, Alan began fishing from the shore. The area was indeed rich in resources, and soon a fish slipped off his hook. Instead of dwelling on the setback, he quickly regained his composure to continue. Yet the same scenario happened again. Just as another fish was about to surface, it slipped off the hook. Alan couldn't believe his bad luck after losing 5 fish in a row. Despite the disappointment and frustration, Alan's optimistic nature helped him see the positive side. Although he hadn't caught any fish, he had found a new resource spot, making the trip ultimately worthwhile. He then placed the repaired gill net back in the water at a new location, hopeful that it wouldn't be another half-month before he caught a fish. Back at camp, the lake had returned to its usual calm. After 5 missed catches, Alan realized his hooks were too big for the trout's small mouths. He switched to smaller hooks, a change that proved correct when the next fish didn't escape. The relief from the long-standing tension was immense, and the beautiful lake fish renewed Alan's hopes for victory. Continuing to fish, Alan eventually noticed a huge fish biting. Unfortunately, he reeled in too quickly before the fish was securely hooked. Although the fish didn't go far and soon bit again, it had sharp teeth and bit through the fishing line, taking the lure and hook with it. Alan was surprised, but not upset, as knowing such a large fish was in the lake was promising. His failure this time didn't mean he would fail again. That night, Alan was woken by a mouse, an annoyance made worse when it chewed through the sweater his wife had given him. Before winter, mice gather warm materials to build their nests, making contestants' sweaters and down sleeping bags prime targets. Determined to prevent further damage, Alan constructed a trap inside his shelter using 2 stone slabs, a few branches, and fish as bait. This type of trap is known for its quick trigger mechanism and is often used by contestants in Alone in the Wilderness to deal with mice. After dawn, Alan made a new lure, and to prevent it from being bitten off by fish again, he attached a long segment of steel wire as a leader. Eager to face the fish that got away, he hurried back to the lakeside for a rematch. Despite waiting for a bite, Alan unexpectedly saw a grouse land in the woods. He quickly reeled in his line, returned to camp for his bow and arrow, and quietly entered the woods to find the grouse's landing spot. Lowering his voice, he set up the camera, drew his bow, and shot the grouse cleanly. Until now, Alan had either not seen any grouse or only noticed them as they flew away. This time, he finally managed to hunt one to change up his diet. As for the mouse that chewed through his sweater on the night of day 36 while half asleep, Alan heard the sound of a mouse gnawing nearby. He swung a stick and dramatically killed the mouse. A few days later, the first snow of the season fell. Alan checked the gill net as usual, but for some reason, it still hadn't caught any fish. He had to place all his hopes on fishing. Based on his current reserves, Alan estimated his food would last until about day 55, insufficient for winning the championship, so he needed to persevere with fishing. Unfortunately, the same issue happened again as 3 fish got off the hook, leaving him very disappointed. Day 43 was his birthday, with the weather still gloomy, cold, and windy. Limited by the wilderness conditions but wanting to maintain some sense of celebration, Alan stacked 3 fish fillets to resemble a cake and used a spark-emitting stick as a candle. Usually allowing himself only half a fish per day, he decided to eat more on his birthday after feeling a bit dizzy while bending over. His body was growing weaker and needed more food. The softly cooked fish was delicious, especially with the smoky flavor. It was irresistibly good, and he ate everything down to the last bit, feeling full. Next, he went to check the gill net, and surprisingly, after more than 40 days without a catch, the net finally had something. Initially, Alan thought he was mistaken, but when he pulled the net out of the water, he confirmed it contained a fish weighing about 5 pounds, the largest he had caught so far. Grateful for nature's birthday gift, he was overjoyed. Alan cleaned the fish by the lake, securing food for another 2 days. As the competition progressed, each fish represented a step closer to the $500,000 prize. As a warm front passed, melting the snow, Alan performed a checkup on camera. Although he had lost 23 kilograms since the start of the competition, he was fortunate to have gained weight beforehand, still retaining some fat reserves. With the rare warm weather, he didn't hesitate to seize the chance to fish by the lake. After standing by the shore for a couple of hours, he finally caught a fish without it getting away, securing food for 2 more days. The championship seemed within reach, one small victory at a time. However, an unexpected issue arose. Alan found a large number of parasites on the liver of a trout. The sight was disconcerting, as improper cooking could lead to infection, potentially disqualifying a contestant. Reluctant to discard the food, each bite could impact his chances of winning. After some consideration, Alan decided to eat it anyway, making sure to cook it thoroughly. He neatly divided the trout into 2 pieces, demonstrating decent culinary skills. One half was placed in the smokehouse, while the other was vigorously boiled to ensure all parasites were killed. He mashed the fish meat and inspected it closely to avoid consuming any parasites. Ideally, he would have saved this fish for last, but considering the general malnutrition among contestants, their decision-making might not be as sharp as viewers would expect, making their actions somewhat understandable. As temperatures continued to drop steadily, Alan still focused on fishing for food. However, the cooler weather drove the fish to the warmer, deeper waters, resulting in 2 unsuccessful fishing attempts. Fortunately, his stored food was ample enough that Alan wasn't at risk of going hungry anytime soon. He could manage by staying warm by the fire and eating smoked fish. By day 55 of the competition, the ice on the lake was thick enough to support walking. Alan planned to fish in deeper areas by breaking through the ice, but for safety, he made a pair of snowshoes first. He simply tied crossbars at the ends of 5 or 6 branches. He ventured to the center of the lake, an area he had never reached before, and chopped a hole in the ice of appropriate size with his axe. He also gathered a pile of moss from the woods. The sugar alcohol in the moss has antifreeze properties that can melt ice. Placing the moss around the hole helped prevent it from freezing over. Fans of wilderness survival shows would know that ice fishing not only tests the contestants' skills, but also their luck. Since the snowfall, the fish had not been very active, and Alan didn't catch any fish for 3 consecutive days. The long nights were torturous, and without any form of entertainment by the fire, it was hard for contestants to manage their emotions. Fortunately, Alan's patience was strong. He knew that even if he quit and went home, he would have nothing to do. His wife was at work, and his children were at school. He would likely regret not continuing in the competition, especially since he still had food left. With this mindset, he reached day 64. The last remaining competitor who had run out of food finally quit. On day 66, the production team brought Alan's wife, following the usual practice of conducting a health check as a pretext to inform him of his victory. In reality, his food supply was also nearly depleted, and he would have chosen to quit once it ran out. Although no large animals were caught in Season 10, several contestants performed exceptionally well, with Alan emerging as the ultimate victor.